Dina, good morning to you. It's a real pleasure to be able to speak to you at lunchtime on Earth Day. It seems like a really good time to be talking to you about sustainability and sustainable technology in particular. Dina, you are Director of Sustainability for the Expo, which is taking place in Dubai, the Expo 2020, taking place in October this year, sadly delayed by COVID from last year, but it is going ahead this year. Dina, before we start talking about the range of sustainability options which have been developed as part of the Expo, do you want to just fill in a bit about your own background and how it is you came to be a massive job to be responsible for sustainability at the Expo this year?
Thank you, Harold. Well, my background is generally engineering. My undergrad is chemical engineering. I studied that in my birth country, Iraq. When I went to the States, I wanted to get into something more interesting for me and something that will make a difference for this planet. And hence, I went back to school and got a master's in sustainability management and an MBA in international business. And that helped kind of took my career on the trajectory that it is. I worked in the US for a while, and then I came to the region with one of the big consulting companies before I started my role here at Expo 2020. And sustainability management is a wide array of different aspects. So you have to understand the social impact and the economic impact and the environmental impact, and bring all of those three together for not just the greater good of the organization, but ensuring that the organization is on the right track to helping create a better environment, both for now and for the future.
I think that's absolutely right, Dina. It's one of the exciting things about working in sustainability or in responsible tourism is that diversity of, I mean, in a sense, the whole library is something which you need to address. You can't just look at any of these things in isolation. But if I may, can I just ask you, I mean, I hadn't realized that you were born in Iraq. But one of the interesting things then, I assume, about your childhood is that you would have been very familiar with the various, what are now regarded as rather old-fashioned technologies, which have been developed in the region for coping with the extreme heat of your part of the world. Has that helped you with your thinking about 20th and 21st century technology and the issues of sustainability?
Absolutely. I think the way that people who lived in this region used to build and still think about building is the concept of passive design and creating wind tunnels to reduce the heat within the area. You see in the UAE, for example, the Burjeel towers that are in the old structures that used to bring the air down and cool it. Even with my home country, as I said, with Iraq, we used to have big courtyards. And the reason for those courtyards is to create this airflow. This is something we also looked at with Expo. If you look at our design structures and our passive design structures, the walkability and the public realm areas are very, very designed in such a way to create those wind tunnels. So there's always a comfort in walking around the spaces of the Expo. So even though I did not design it, one of the things that were implemented from a design perspective, and one of the mandates that we followed was that passive design, the way the buildings are positioned, the walkability of the spaces, and ensuring that the fauna and flora also provide shading and provide capabilities of cooling the area without actually needing big technologies or big cooling systems to do that.
The problem with the big technologies is that they do use a great deal of energy. Now, obviously, in the region where the Expo is, a lot of that can be generated with the kind of technology which is behind me on this slide. But it's still, of course, resource intensive to even create the solar park in the first place, isn't it? So, Dina, do you want to take us through the various aspects of sustainability? And the idea here was that you would give a general introduction during this short conversation, and then we will look at each of them individually with as it were follow-up conversations about some of the detail, particularly across both the whole campus of the Expo, but also the Sustainability Pavilion in particular, which I must say I'm very excited. I'm hoping to come out and see that in the autumn.
Well, you're most welcome. Actually, if you look at sustainability at Expos, it's integrated into the DNA of Expo. And what I mean by that, it's not just the building structures and the building designs that we just talked about. It's photovoltaics, which, as you said, you're rightly showing behind you. But all our permanent structures, for example, are equipped with photovoltaics. And the reason for the permanent structures and not the temporary structures, because it, as you know, I mean, it requires a lot of labor, it requires a lot of assets to be put in. So for us, it didn't make sense to put photovoltaics on any temporary structures. Water conservation, energy, of course, and as well as landscape. All of these things are interconnected from an environmental perspective. We measure our emissions and our carbon footprint, and we report on that as well, so that we make sure that there's this transparency about what Expo is doing and how it's reducing its embodied carbon using specific materials that meet requirements that are put together by myself and my team and the people of the Expo. So that's just talking about the environmental part. Then we look at the social aspects of sustainability, ensuring that there's engagement with youth through our schools program. Our Expo Live program looks at innovations and social impact and bringing forth grants to increase that innovation around the world. And that program in itself has been an amazing success. Gender equality, we have a women's pavilion. We have, actually, we are led by a woman, Her Excellency Reem Al Hashimi. So the gender equality and the gender balance is very, very important for us. And then that's the social aspect. Then you look at the economic aspect, especially now within the time of COVID, when we start looking at the post-COVID recovery, looking at green recovery, looking at B2B engagements in the at the Expo site, looking at programs such as what you're doing, how to expand tourism, but in a socially responsible way, in an environmentally responsible way. All of these things create, create a capability that the Expo has to bring people together. With over 190 countries coming to our space, it's the perfect place for what I call the green renaissance, which I think is coming post-Expo. Post-COVID, during Expo.
Let's hope you're right. I wanted to ask you about all the other pavilions. How many pavilions are there in total, Dina?
That's a very good question. Well, we have our anchor pavilions that are the sustainability, opportunity, and mobility, and those sit within the 3 thematic districts, all connected by our Wasl Plaza. And in fact, I have a picture of that, and I can show you.
Let's have a look at this.
A little glimpse of our of what we have at the Expo site.
Let's have a look at that.
Absolutely. I'm very technologically challenged sometimes, so bear with me.
It's worth waiting to see this. It's a stunning photograph.
Absolutely, it's worth waiting. But I can show you just a glimpse of just, and this is a recent picture, so I want to make sure that I share it right. I hope you can see it.
It's just coming now.
Yes.
I see. So, and in fact, the buildings are quite close together, aren't they? And presumably that's to encourage people to walk between them.
Absolutely. And they're really not that close together. They may seem that close together, but they're not. And what you're seeing here is Wasl Plaza, which is the dome that connects all the different areas together. And the dome itself is a architectural marvel. And it will be a 360 screen, both on the inside and the outside, and will host some of the best entertainment that actually will be seen around the world. The buildings around it are actually, one of them is the Rove Hotel, and the other one is the communications building, but all of these buildings will be kept, of course, for the legacy of Expo. So over 80% of the buildings that are the permanent structures will be kept for the legacy of Expo in District 2020, and will be utilized as office space, as residence, as a hotel, as you see, restaurants, and so on and so forth. The Sustainability Pavilion, which we will talk about in a few minutes, will be a children's science museum, the first of its kind in the region. And so everything has been thought about, not for the 6 months of the Expo, but for the legacy, which is a very important point that I think we need to address, not just for our Expo, but if you look at other mega events, is looking at the legacy of those events, not just at the time of the event.
Yeah, absolutely, Dina. One of the intriguing things about expos is that they bring together lots of different countries, and they each build their own pavilion. Did you have any difficulties in persuading the other participants in the expo to build in a way that was sustainable?
Absolutely not. I think that the countries were all on the same page. What we did was we created processes that they can utilize to ensure that their pavilions meet specific sustainability requirements. So we have our materials guidelines, we have our strategy, and we have the capability to work with our international participants to showcase their sustainability capabilities, because it's not just about what we do at Expo. This is a collective effort, and the collective effort includes the countries, and it includes our commercial partners as well, and the likes of MasterCard and UPS and Siemens and so on.
I was really pleased to hear what you said earlier in this interview, when you said that you're very committed to reporting on the levels of emissions and so on that are associated with this massive new development for the region. It seems to me that one of the critical problems moving forward is to get people to transparently report, because we hear so much about the claims of things like net zero, which is a very nebulous concept, isn't it? And I assume that you're reporting in a much clearer way than that.
Yes, absolutely. So we started our reporting process a few years back, and we've issued our 2018 sustainability report. We issued our 2019 sustainability report. And now we're in the process of issuing our 2020 sustainability report. However, this report will be a 15-month report. Because of COVID, we added the extra 3 months so that we can report at a 15-month cycle. And the reason we're reporting is because we want to create that credibility, and we want to ensure that what we're doing on site is also transferred to other mega events, other areas where people can use the knowledge that we put together. Also, the transparency part, and I totally agree with you. Sometimes people in the sustainability world say all kinds of things, but we wanted to back it with facts. And so our sustainability report is based on GRI, or the Global Reporting Initiative, and also vetted by them for the indices that we use, the indicators that we use, and for the content. So we try to create that credibility, and we tell the entire story. So it's not just the good, but everything. It is transparently put into that report. And it's very, very important for our leadership, from our leadership's perspective, for us to do that. And they encourage that. And
Dina,
that credibility, yeah, sorry.
Dina, can I just push you a little bit on that? Because
yeah,
one of my frustrations about Arabia in general and the MENA countries is that I know a lot of really good work is being done in the region that you're in the middle of, and yet we hear so little about it. This is quite a revolutionary change isn't it? In the sense that people are very bravely backing you in talking about what is being achieved in a very transparent way. And you're right, that will become world leading.
Yes.
Because what
Absolutely.
we will be doing then, people like me, is challenging others to do as well as you have done. Was that difficult to persuade the leaders in the UAE to adopt that approach?
On the contrary, it came from them. So I'm part of a much bigger, how do you say, a much bigger organization, and that is driving this change. So for me, it was a breath of fresh air, because I've worked in other places in the world and I've not seen this level of transparency, to be honest with you. And it was not just welcome, it's part of their bid, of the commitment when they bid for the Expo, to create that transparency. So the bid document said, we will do the following: we will report, we will create an impact beyond the 6 months and beyond the boundaries of the site. We will look at the economic value of sustainability, and these objectives are in the bid document that went out to the world when they wanted to host the World Expo. So to me, I'm just the messenger, and I'm just putting the foundations of what was put forth by the leadership.
Dina, that's extremely modest of you, but it lacks a little credibility. I think you've done a great deal to, you've been a big part of achieving what's been achieved with the Expo. I gather we're going to do a few more of these together, aren't we? Looking at some of the specific issues, but I think we'll call it to a close there, and we will put up a set of these interviews so that people can see different parts of it in more detail. But if I could just thank you for your time this morning. And I look forward very much to the next interview. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Harold. Good to talk to you.